Hey everyone, this is Mukesh Utwani once again from learn-automation.com. Today in this video we'll talk about how to take test data from JSON file in Playwright. See, whenever you talk about test automation, this is a generic practice that whatever test you are writing, suppose you are writing 3 tests for the time being, every test need some kind of test data. For example, username, password, then some other activities, username, password, some other activities, username, password, and some other activities, right? So every test needs some kind of test data. Now let's say if you are hard coding the data in every script 1, 2, 3. Tomorrow, if the test data changed, then you have to update each and every script, right? Right now I'm talking about only 3, but in real time you might have 300 scenarios or maybe 500. If you hard code the test data, then it will create lot of maintenance cost. It will be very tough to update all the script because test data is very dynamic. The moment you change your environment, the moment you have to test your application with new set of data, you have to update. So what is the recommendation? Recommendation is whatever test you are writing, let's take again 3 scripts. Whatever test data you need, you can maintain in a separate file. So all your test scripts will take the data from this particular file. Now this file can be JSON file, CSV, XML, Excel file, database, or any other file. Doesn't matter. Depends on what kind of test data you're using. But the concept will remain same. You are not hard coding the values here. You are parameterizing the data from a different source. Tomorrow, any test data you want to update in the respective file, not your script. In this example, we will be dealing with JSON file. Whenever you work with any JavaScript based framework, recommendation is go with the JSON file because we have inbuilt JSON module, which will help you to read JSON file with inbuilt methods. So in this video, we'll see how to take the data from JSON file. In the second part of this video, we'll talk about how to perform data-driven test in Playwright while making a small change in the code. Very easy, but you need to watch this video till the end. Step by step, I will explain you how it works in Playwright. Now let's see how we can take data from JSON file. So this is the application that we are going to automate. So basically, in this application, we will be passing username and password. So right now I have already written a spec file which is login.spec.js. I already created a test and I added one statement just to save some time. Now let's say I want to enter some username and password. So if I right click on this particular element and inspect. So this is the input tag and you can see name, we have type, placeholder, ID. Now I can take any attribute or I can take this XPath. I'm using selector sub. Okay, so I can quickly copy this XPath, but if you want to write your own custom XPath, please go ahead and use your custom XPath in CSS. Our main intention in this demo is to show you how to take the data from JSON file and use it. So I'm going to use page.locator and whatever XPath we have written, I will paste here. And then I will use fill method to enter some data. So let's say this is the email ID which I want to enter. Right now this is hard coded, right? And we want to take the same data from a JSON file. So let's create our JSON file. Now if you already have an existing JSON file, you can go ahead and use it. Right now in my project, I don't have any JSON file. So this is the one JSON file which is actually for the complete project. We need our separate JSON file for the test data. So I'm going to click on new. It will ask me to create any new file. I will give this file as testdata.json file and it will create one empty JSON file for me. So let me enter, curly braces open and close. So this will basically have a JSON object. Now I will assign key values. So I'm going to create first key which is username, colon, and the value. Let's say value is mukesh@gmail.com. Let's take one by one, step by step. So as of now, I have one JSON file which have only one record, key is username, value is mukesh@gmail.com. Now suppose I want to use the same test data here, how we can use it, let's see. So first of all, we have to actually import this JSON file, right? So you can see we have first require, which is actually using Playwright test. Now I have to use this test data.json. So again, I will use require. And now I have to provide the path. See, right now it is in my home directory, right? So when I say home directory, as you can see here, this is my home directory. In the home directory, I have all these folders and files. In case you have this test data.json file in any other folder, you can provide the folder name. Since it is on my home directory, I will put ... The moment I say slash, it will give me all these options. Right now I want to use this test data.json file, right? So this I have imported. See, this is actually a file, right? Now in order to use this file, first I have to use a method which is coming from JSON module. We have to use a stringify method. Okay, inside this method you can actually pass this JSON file. So what this stringify method will do, it will convert a JavaScript value to a JSON string. Okay, so the stringify will convert whatever JSON file we have given into a JSON string. Now whatever test data you need to use here, now you need in terms of JSON object. Okay, so again you have to use JSON.parse. So parse is again a predefined method. So what it will do basically, if you put mouse over, it will convert JSON string into an object. So basically we are doing two conversion. First we use require, which is basically importing this. Then we did a stringify, and then we did the parsing. Once you did the parsing, you will be getting everything into a JSON object. Okay, it converts into an object which I have stored into a JSON variable. If you think it's getting confused, change it to test data. It means if you want to access anything from this JSON file, you will be using test data object. For example, I want to use only one field, which is basically username, right? So I will first use this test data. Using dot, I will add which field I want to access. In my case, I want to access test data.username, which is nothing but mukesh@gmail.com. Now first let's execute this so that we'll understand whether it's able to take data from JSON file or not. Now in order to execute this, I'm going to run this command. This we discussed in our previous videos. So you have to use npx playwright test. Then we are mentioning that go to my test folder, look for this particular spec file, login.spec. We can change this. Right now it's looking for login application.spec.js. I will change it. By default, when you run your test from command prompt, it always runs in the headless mode. So we have to mention explicitly that hyphen headed, so that whatever test we have written, basically 2 steps, login and open this application and enter this data. Let's execute this. The moment I execute, it says no test found, obviously because the file name has to be updated. Okay, so what I will do, I will go ahead, change this. Now it is matching login.spec.js. Execute this. And it was too fast that we could not even see. So I will do one thing just to show you this part. I will add pause. Okay. Now let's execute again. You can see it entered mukesh@gmail.com, and this is actually coming from our JSON file. Now let's use another test data. I will add comma and let me add another field called password. Let me enter this password as admin@123. Now I want to fetch this password as well. So go ahead and inspect this particular field, which is password. Again, you can find name, type, placeholder ID. Just to save some time, again I copied the XPath. Await page.locator. And now I can use fill. Since I don't want to hardcode, if I will hardcode, it will take the hard-coded value. Since we are taking from JSON file, I will use test data. Using dot, we will give the field name, which is password. And it should be within this parenthesis. Now let's execute again. Okay, so this is username, which you can see. This is entering the password, which you're not able to see basically because it's a password field. But very simple. First use require, then call method called stringify, then finally call the parse method. You will get the data, and using dot you can continue. Let me take one more example. Just to show you this example, for example, if I click on new sign up or new user, in this page you can see we have name, email, password, interest, gender, state, hobbies, right? Now suppose again if I want the complete data for this particular page from JSON file, again I can maintain. So this is one. If you want, you can continue in this JSON file, otherwise you can create another JSON file. It's totally up to you. You can create another JSON object also. Now let's say I want to take few more details. For example, I will take name, which is not available right now. So I will call this as name. Let's call name Mukesh. Now I want to provide interest. Now you can see we have multiple interests, right? Now we can store all of them as an array. What I mean, come back. You can call this as interest. And now since you have multiple, so value can be an array as well. Right now if you see value is actually a string, right? Now since I have multiple interest, I can keep all the interest as array. So this is one. Second will be your, let's say, Java. Third one will be API. And like this you can continue. Again, let's say if you have gender, you can mention gender. Again, one more field. You can have state, and you can continue in this manner. Now what I want to show you especially here, suppose you have a nested JSON value. What I mean, suppose instead of this, if I type address, okay, now address might have multiple fields. Since the value is another JSON, I can say this as first area name. Let's call this HSR. I want to have city name. Let's call this Bangalore. Let's say you want to have pin code. Now if you want to access, let's say, area name. So right now what we are doing, we are saying if I want to access username, I'm saying testdata.username, testdata.password. If I want to access area, you can use testdata.address.area. So let me show you. I'm taking the same example. Instead of entering username, in the same field I want to enter area. So I can say test data dot address. After address, I want to access area. So dot area. See, it entered area here. I know it's not a proper example. Instead of username, I entered the area name, but our main motto was to check if we have nested JSON value, how you can take it. Similarly, let's say you want to take interest. Now this interest have multiple values, right? So it's an array. Array will start from 0, 0, 1, 2. So let's say you want to take interest as Java. How you can access? So go ahead and type interest. Test data dot interest. And now if I give 0, it will take interest as Cypress. Let's execute. See, it took Cypress. And if I take 1, it will take Java. Now what if you say 3? When I say 3, it means I want to access 4th value, right? What we have 0, 1, 2. Total 3 values. What I am trying to access the 4th value. So whenever you try to access something which is throwing error, so here in this case it says error locator.fill. It was expecting a string, but since we don't have this value available, it is giving undefined and says I was expecting a string, I got undefined. Fine, so please use it accordingly. Depends how you have organized your test data. If you have a nested JSON, please use dot dot dot. If you have array, you can use indexes. Now let's move to the second part of this video, which is data driven test in Playwright. Now first of all, let's quickly understand what is data driven test. Very easy. Again, to show you this, let me open this application. Actually, I closed it. Yeah. So when I execute my script one time, let's say if your test is successful, it will create one successful user. What if I have to create 5 users? Okay. I want to create 5 users through automation. In this scenario, what we have, either I can execute my script 5 times with different data. Every time I will go ahead and change my test data and execute, right? So it will take the new data, execute. Once the second one is done, you will execute one more time, change the test data and so on. So this is fine, but when you have only few number of iterations, what if I have 50 iterations? What if I have 100 iterations? It could be any number, and I want to execute same script multiple times. So first create user, then it should create second user, it should create third user, and so on. Let's say we have 100. Our script should run 100 times. So this scenario known as data driven test, where the test is driven by data. Same script will execute multiple times. So this is what we are going to implement. Now in order to show you this data driven test, I will take the same login scenario. Right now we have taken one username password, but now I will take 3 username password and our script will run 3 times. So this test data I can change. Okay, let me only pick username password, or let's do one thing, let's create a copy. Let me rename this to test login.json file. Let me remove this. See guys, now try to understand, this is one record. Let's say if I need 3 records, definitely I need 3 values. So this is one JSON object, right? If I want one more, I should keep like this. Let's say this is 1@gmail.com, Mukesh 2@gmail.com, and I need one more. So let me copy this. Since I have 3 JSON object, they should be within one array. Okay, so this is our first record, this is our second record, and this is our third record. And now we will be writing our test in a such a way that first it should take this record, use this username, this password, execute my script, pass or fail. Then it should take second record, execute the script with this test data. It could be pass or fail. Then it will move on to the third record, execute, pass or fail. Since I am taking 3 records, it will run 3 times. If you have 30, it will run 30 times. Now how we have to apply these changes? Step number 1, we will provide this particular path. Since we have created separate JSON file, right, I will use the new name. Now slight changes you have to do here. So first of all, write test dot describe. Okay, so we are declaring a group of tests. When I say group of tests, basically we have 3 tests now. So using describe, I'm mentioning we have a group of tests. Let me give this as data driven login test. Now you can have anonymous function, no need to pass any parameter. So this is one describe that we have created. Since we have 3 records, we need to run a loop, right? I need to run loop 3 times now, but if you have 30, it should run 30 times. If you have 50, it should run 50 times. So next thing which I need to iterate this test data JSON object that we got, which is nothing but array of objects, right? So we'll run a for loop. This we have to iterate. So after every iteration, I will store in a const. Let me call this as data of test data. It means it will run 3 times. So first time it will run, it will take this set of records. It will store into a data object. So once I get data, I can say data dot username, data dot password. So this loop 3 times, every time we'll get one object. Inside this, now we can write our test. So I will write test dot describe again. Here I will provide the name. So I will say login with user, or let's say login with users. Then again I will provide anonymous function. Inside this I should write now proper test. So write test name, let's say login test. Now basically we can actually copy paste the complete one. Instead of writing same thing again and again, inside this you can copy paste. Now I can see still we have some errors, so let's quickly see. This one is completed here. Okay, this describe is completed here. What about this for loop? This for loop is done here. This one is missing, right? This one. So this has to come here. Now we are done. Come back. Now if you see, it is giving us one more error. It says duplicate test title, data driven login test, which is basically this, right? Then login with users, which is this, and then login with application. So what is the reason of this? See, when we run this, every time it will take same, first this describe, then this describe, and then the test name. So when you see the report, you will find duplicates. To avoid this, what I will do, I will add something called ID here. This is only for reporting purpose I'm taking, and I will give this as 1. I will add one more for the second record. Let me call this as 2. Let me add this as 3. Now I will use this ID. So when you see the report, now it will say ID 1, 2, 3. So while running our test, what we can do, here we can take the IDs so that we should not get the duplicate record. What I mean, I will use template literals, and now I will use $. What we have is basically data, right? This one. So data.id. Just a small change, instead of using single quotes, you have to use backtick, okay? It is just below the tilde sign. Now let's see how does it work. See, I will explain you once again. Let's execute this first. I will show you the report, then you will understand why we are doing all of this. So let me just remove some additional statements so that we can see properly. Now I can remove this pause, because pause I added just to show you. Now let's execute. Okay, so now here it says expected string got undefined. Username, username, username. Test data. Okay. See, instead of test data, we have to use data now, because we are actually using data. All 3 passed. If you see the report, this is the previous report. Let me close this. Yeah. Now let's try to map this. What is this describe? Data driven login test. Can you see? Data driven login test. This one. Then we have mentioned login with users, and from the JSON file we are picking ID1, ID2, ID3. When we were not adding this, it was saying duplicate test name, right? So it was giving us error. What we are doing, we are saying login with user, which is fix. Login with user, login with user, login with user. This 1, 2, 3 purposefully we are taking from this JSON file. We added one extra ID, right? It means while doing the first iteration, it should take ID as 1. This will be our test data. The next one, it will append this while generating the describe, then username password. Come back again. Then we have login to application, login to application, login to application, because this is what we have mentioned here. So just to maintain the uniqueness, we have appended data.id, which is coming from here. Now let me give you a quick recap. When you have single record, you can just take this as a single record and say data.username, data.password, depends what object name you are giving here. But when you have array of records, in our case we had 3 records, so we executed a for loop. One by one it will pick each record, take ID, take username, password. Again execute this, take the second record, ID, username, password. Execute one more time, take the third record, ID, username, password. That's how you can perform data-driven test here in Playwright. I will give you this code snippet. So after this video, you will find the code snippet either in the description or in my blog. You can directly go ahead, try this, let me know if you face an issue. And in case this video helped you in any manner, then do support this channel, share this video with your friends, colleague, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care.